In a perfect world, we all would know what is happening with every piece of our inventory at every moment. We would have all the data we need stored in our head, and everything would be 100% accurate. But let's face it, this isn't a perfect world, and nobody could store that much data. When it comes to inventory management, key performance indicators are very important, and there is a long list of them. Everything from inventory turnover rate, days on hand, stock to sales ratio, sell-through rates, backorder rates, rate of return, put-away time, perfect order rate, and thousands more. Could you imagine having all that information? It would be very difficult to track, understand, and act on opportunities. Inventory metrics need to be simple. With that being said, over the next few videos, we will look at 4 of the most important measures you can monitor at an aggregate level to set inventory goals, manage inventory, and make adjustments when needed. Those 4 measures are inventory turnover, days of supply, fill rate, and cash-to-cash cycle. These 4 key performance indicators are used by some of the largest companies, including USPS, Walmart, and Amazon. With that in mind, we would like to ask each of you, what measurements do you track your inventory with? Share your thoughts in the community, comments, or upcoming assignments, and remember to come back often. We'll see you in the next lecture. Managing inventory would be impossible without a means to track how much inventory is on hand and if it is an appropriate amount of inventory. With this being said, the days of supply metric is a useful metric that can show an organization how many days their existing inventory will last before it reaches 0 or drops into their safety stocks. The days of supply are often evaluated or defined by periods. For example, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or even periodically. You will need to decide what period of evaluation will work best for you. From a planning perspective, this can be beneficial on many different levels. First, it helps a planner gauge when they will run out of inventory as well as plan for replenishment of those items if necessary. From a procurement perspective, the days of supply metric can help determine how many items to order, when to order, and how frequently the purchaser should order. One of the many benefits of the days of supply metric outside of knowing when you will run out of inventory is that it decreases ordering costs because planner and procurement officers are better able to gauge what they need to order. This will also have a positive effect on receiving materials and help you avoid lost sales. Now that we know what days of supply is, let's look at this metric and how it is calculated. Days of supply is calculated by dividing your inventory on hand by the average daily usage. For example, if your organization has 1,000 units on hand and you are using, on average, 14 per day, you would have 71 days of supply left in inventory. And that's it, days of supply. Now, in keeping with our traditions, let's make our minds think a little. Let's say we have 1,740 units of inventory on hand, and our company uses about 24 units a day. What would our days of supply be? We look forward to seeing your answers in the comments section or the upcoming assignment section. And we look forward to seeing you back here on Lean Strategies International LLC, where you can find solutions that ignite your power today. Inventory turnover is an essential metric that all organizations need to track. Inventory turnover can reveal everything from how your pricing is, how long a product is sitting, and even how long your money is tied up. With that said, let's focus on what inventory turnover actually is. Formally defined, inventory turnover is the number of times your inventory cycles or turns over in a year, or a defined period of time. Inventory turnover can help an organization understand how efficiently their inventory is supporting sales. The inventory turnover number implies how often inventory was bought and sold throughout a defined period. Put another way, inventory turnover is an indicator of how well a business is using their inventory. For example, how many dollars of sales from a cost perspective are being supported by each dollar of inventory. Low inventory turnover numbers often hint at overstocking, obsolescence, or unstable processes. A high inventory turnover can also be dangerous if it is depleting reserves too quickly, but generally points towards strong sales and effective inventory management for an organization. Now that we know what inventory turnover is, let's break down the ratio and understand what it means. Put very simply, the ratio tells us the number of times the inventory is sold and replenished or turned over in a defined period of time. With this in mind, many organizations also use the ratio to help them understand how long it will take to sell the inventory they have on hand. The inventory ratio divides two numbers, which are cost of goods sold and average inventory. The output of this formula tells an organization how many times inventory turns over in a specific period of time. As you might have guessed, a high inventory turnover ratio means that you cycle inventory much more often, and as mentioned before, is good evidence of strong sales and effective inventory management. It is important to note that engineer-to-order companies and make-to-order companies may have lower inventory turnover ratios, as the products are much more customizable and not usually sold in large volumes. Nonetheless, if an organization has a low turnover ratio, inventory analysis is needed to find the cause. Now, let's look over briefly at how the turnover ratio works. As mentioned earlier, turnover is calculated by dividing the cost of goods sold by the average inventory. Average inventory is used to smooth out the peaks and valleys of inventory and give you a more stable, consistent metric to work with. This also helps to smooth out seasonal fluctuations, such as holidays or even major events. With this new piece of knowledge, let's walk through the steps of calculating inventory turnover. As we've mentioned, inventory turnover is calculated by dividing the cost of goods sold by the average amount of inventory. First, we start by getting our average inventory. The most common way to do this is by adding your beginning inventory and your ending inventory for a defined period and dividing that by 2. Now that we have our average inventory, we need to gather our total cost of goods sold for a period. This can generally be found on an income statement, but you may need to do some calculations to find it. Once you have your cost of goods sold, we are ready to calculate our inventory turnover. To do this, we divide the cost of goods sold by the average inventory amount. Let's look at an example. Let's say we have a company called K&K Manufacturing. K&K has posted a cost of goods sold of $1,500 and an average inventory amount of $500 on hand for the fourth quarter. We would then divide $1,500 by $500, which gives K&K an inventory turnover ratio of 3. In the second example, we'll use the same company, but this time compute the average inventory period, or how long it will take to sell the inventory currently on hand using inventory turnover. We already know the inventory turnover ratio is 3. To calculate how many days it will take to sell the inventory on hand, we simply divide 365 days in the year by 3, which equals 121.67 days, or 122 days if we round our answer. We now know how long it will take to sell the inventory. And that's it. Inventory turnover. Now, let's challenge ourselves a bit. Let's say K&K posts data for the next quarter. This quarter, they have an average of $2,000 and a cost of goods sold of $1,100. What is their inventory turnover, and what does this number indicate or reveal to you about how their inventory has changed? We look forward to hearing your answers, and we'll see you in the next video. Have you ever wondered, how many customer orders can I fill without running out of inventory? If you have, then fill rate is the metric for you. Fill rate is another very important inventory metric that will help you understand questions like this and many more. So, what is the fill rate? Well, formally defined, a fill rate is the percentage of customer orders that a company can ship or fill immediately from the inventory you have on hand without placing back orders, running out of stock, or missing sales. Okay, such a valuable measurement must be quite complex to calculate, right? Actually, another powerful aspect of the fill rate is its simplicity to calculate. The fill rate can be generated at any time to help an organization understand what they can fill. The formula is simple as well. Fill rate is calculated by dividing the number of products you provided or filled by the total number of products ordered. So, what does the output of this formula actually tell us? Well, to start, the fill rate is interpreted as a percentage, or orders filled from the total number of orders. For example, if we fulfilled 10 orders out of 20, that would mean our fill rate is 50%, which is not very good at all. The low fill rate may indicate that you don't have enough stock on hand or that your inventory is not being replenished fast enough. It may also be an indicator of many other inventory issues, like poor organization in the warehouse. Nonetheless, if your fill rate is 80% or less, you need to look closer at your inventory and find out what is causing the low fill rate. Let's look at an example. Assuming we have only one order and one customer we are filling for, let's imagine that K&K Manufacturing has an order to fill 50 bottles of a powerful prescription medication. K&K is only able to ship 40 bottles of the medication. To get K&K's fill rate, we divide 40 bottles shipped by the complete order of 50 bottles. K&K's fill rate is 80%. Now let's turn our attention to why an organization would want to track their fill rate. Without some understanding of how well you are meeting customer demand, you are only guessing. And, as we all know, how well you meet customer demand is critical in inventory management and the overall customer experience. Fill rate can give you insight into how well you are doing and help you find opportunities if changes are needed. Another reason that many companies opt to track fill rate is to manage their orders. For example, if you are not able to fill an order in its entirety, you can inform your customer and find solutions to your problem before the customer becomes frustrated. One way you may do this is by offering alternatives to a product if you cannot fill the entire order, or by shipping partials. Fill rate can also help you manage and improve your inventory fulfillment processes. For example, if your fill rate has a dropping trend or is always low, you may consider searching for alternative suppliers or revisiting how your reorder strategy is working. If the item is an in-house item, you may consider looking at the value stream and removing waste or issues. This will help you ensure you're maintaining optimal inventory levels. And that's it, fill rate. Now, before we go, let's see if you can answer this question in the comments section or the upcoming assignments section. Let's say that K&K receives an order for 120 bottles of prescription medication, and they are only able to fill 94 bottles of the order. What is their fill rate, and what actions might you take if this was your fill rate? Well, thanks for watching, friends. We look forward to seeing you back here again on Lean Strategies International, where you can find solutions that ignite your power today. In this video, we will learn how to set up a very simple template to calculate your fill rate inside of Google Sheets. Before we get started, we will be using Google Sheets to build your template and a formula that will make calculating the fill rate easy. If you're not familiar with Google Sheets, you can visit another link in the description to learn more about this powerful tool. Also, there is one more assumption we will have, and that is that all items are on one order and with one customer. The formula can get quite a bit complex when you mix and match multiple orders. Okay, let's get started. Now, we've already set up our sheet to number using a row formula, and we've frozen the top row to keep things organized when we are scrolling. As we learned in previous videos, there are two elements of fill rate: fulfilled items on the order and total number of items on the order. With that in mind, we need to create some labels that contain the two elements of fill rate. Our first label will be fulfilled items. Next, we need a label that says total number of items on the order, and finally, a label that says fill rate. Now, before we begin our fill rate formula, you may want to clean up your sheet a little bit and organize it the way that you like. You may be using it a lot. Now, we're ready to get started. As we learned in our previous videos, fill rate is calculated by dividing fulfilled items on the order by total number of items on the order. To do this, we will use the if-error formula. Let's begin. First, we will enter our equal sign to start our formula. Then we will type if error with an open bracket. Now we will select cell B2 with a divide sign or /, and then select cell C2. Next, we want to enter a comma. This will move us to our first argument. In our case, if B2 divided by C2 is an error or cannot be calculated, we would like our cell to show up blank. To do this, we will enter 2 apostrophes in our argument, and then close our formula. Now, if we enter only one number, or by chance there is an error, the cell will remain blank. Next, we will grab our completed formula, copy it, and highlight the entire column where fill rate is, and paste the formula all the way down. Then replace your label in the top cell only. Finally, we want to format our fill rate so that it returns a percentage without having to multiply the answer by 100. To do this, we will select our entire fill rate column and click here. Then we will select %. Now, when the fill rate is calculated, our sheet will return a %. For example, 70% fill rate or 100% fill rate. Okay, let's try it out. Let's say we filled 14 items in a 20-item order. Our sheet now automatically calculates our 70% fill rate. And that's it. A simple fill rate template that you can use daily if need be. Also, this template is available by clicking on the link in the description, so you can build it if you want or save a little time and visit our website. We hope you enjoyed this easy fill rate template using our if-error formula, and we'll see you in the next video. Wouldn't it be nice if you had a metric that could track the time between when a business pays its suppliers and when the business receives payment from its customers? The cash conversion cycle, also known as the cash-to-cash cycle time, does just that. In this lecture, you will learn the foundational elements of the cash-to-cash cycle time. Let's get started. Cash-to-cash cycle time looks at the amount of time, usually days, of working capital a business has tied up in managing its inventory or supply chain. Like many metrics, the more efficient the cash-to-cash cycle time is, the fewer days an organization's cash is unavailable for use. A cash-to-cash cycle time of 1 month or less would be considered a good time. On the other hand, a cash-to-cash cycle time of 2 to 3 months would show that an organization's cash is tied up and not available for use for what many industries consider to be a dangerous amount of time. Please note that the cash-to-cash cycle time can vary quite a bit between industries. With this in mind, it should be every organization's objective to reduce their cash-to-cash cycle time. How do you do this? One of the primary ways that a company can reduce the amount of time that cash is tied up is to optimize the inventory they have on hand. If cash is not tied up in inventory, it is available for use. This is why continuous improvement strategies like Lean are a very effective way to improve cash-to-cash cycle time. Be aware that improving your overall inventory strategy will require alignment of all parties, including supply chain partners, as well as finding and removing waste and creating a more streamlined organization. Improving order-to-cash processes will also reduce your cash-to-cash cycle time. As invoice processing and receipt of customer payments improves, the amount of time that an organization's capital is tied up will improve as well. 3 possible areas a company can look to improve their cash-to-cash cycle time are: first, invoicing processes can be mapped out and waste can be eliminated to create a more streamlined process flow. Second, many organizations can also reduce or eliminate wasteful activities that do not transform information or materials in any way. And finally, organizations may also analyze antiquated systems and processes and choose to revise inefficient processes that increase the likelihood of billing errors and causing information or material defects. You may be wondering, how do you calculate this cash conversion cycle? The cash conversion cycle is calculated by adding days inventory outstanding and days sales outstanding, and then subtracting days payable outstanding. Let's look at an example. It takes K&K Manufacturing an average of 60 days to sell its inventory. Once they have sold their product, it then takes them about 30 days to collect payment from customers. In general, K&K pays its suppliers in 75 days. With this data, we can calculate our cash-to-cash cycle time. First, we add 60 days inventory outstanding and 30 days sales outstanding. Then we subtract 75 days payables outstanding, and we get a cash-to-cash cycle time of 15 days. Now, you may be wondering, how do I calculate days inventory outstanding, days sales outstanding, and days payable outstanding? Well, in the next few lectures, we will share with you about these three elements of the cash-to-cash cycle time. Now, before we go, let's challenge our minds by answering the following question. Let's say K&K Manufacturing takes an average of 32 days to sell its inventory. Once they have sold their product, it then takes them about 90 days to collect payment from customers, and in general, K&K pays its suppliers in about 60 days. What is K&K's cash-to-cash cycle time, and what observations can you make from this metric? Thanks again for watching, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you right back here on Lean Strategies International LLC, where you can find solutions that ignite your power. Days inventory outstanding, or DIO as it is often referred to, is a ratio that measures the average number of days that a company holds inventory before they transform that inventory into sales. The lower the figure, the better. You may be wondering, why? Well, lower DIO tells us that this inventory will tie up our cash for less time and that our risk of obsolete inventory is much less, and that is good. Days inventory outstanding is also known as days sales of inventory and days in inventory. Days inventory outstanding is one component of the cash conversion cycle, or cash-to-cash cycle time, which you can learn more about by clicking on a link in the description. The cash conversion cycle is calculated using three metrics. They are days inventory outstanding, days payable outstanding, and days sales outstanding. Why is this important? Well, it tells us that the cash-to-cash cycle time can be improved by reducing DIO, reducing DSO, or increasing DPO. So, how do we calculate days inventory outstanding? Days inventory outstanding is usually calculated as shown in the picture here. DIO equals average inventory divided by cost of goods sold times the number of days in the period you are calculating. For example, if a company has $30,000 in inventory on average during a 1-year period, and their cost of goods sold is $143,000, we would calculate DIO by first dividing the average inventory of $30,000 by the cost of goods sold of $143,000, and then multiplying that by the number of days in the period. For example, if our period was a year, we would multiply our answer by 365 days. This would equal a DIO of 76.57 days. Let's now answer the question, what does a high or low days inventory outstanding mean? When a company has a low DIO, it typically means they are converting inventory into sales rapidly. This is a good thing. Another way to interpret low DIO is that there is less chance that inventory will become obsolete. So what does a high DIO signal? In general, a lower DIO is better than a higher one. High DIO generally indicates that a company is not converting inventory into sales fast enough. This could also reveal inventory management issues such as overstocking. If DIO is high, the company's cash is also tied up in inventory for a longer period of time, which also means that the company cannot use its money for other purposes. So, how do you improve your high DIO? There are two basic ways that a company can improve days inventory outstanding. The first is to speed up the conversion of inventory into sales, and the second is to reduce the amount of inventory that you are holding. This may involve using techniques like the just-in-time system or implementing continuous improvement strategies like Lean, which generally have a positive effect on inventory management. In addition to these strategies, many organizations will be deployed, honed in on sales techniques like various marketing strategies and using different methods that influence customer sales. And that's it. Days inventory outstanding. Well, thanks for watching, friends, and remember to keep coming back and studying your videos where you can find solutions that ignite your power today. Days payable outstanding is a financial ratio used in accounting and finance departments that measures how many days, usually on average, it takes a company to provide payment to its suppliers. The higher a company's DPO, the longer it takes to pay its bills. Days payable outstanding is calculated using the formula shown here. To calculate DPO, you would multiply accounts payable by the number of days in your period and then divide your answer by the cost of goods sold. Let's look at an example. Let's say K&K Manufacturing has an average accounts payable of $200,000 over a 365-day period, and their cost of sales is $750,000. To calculate the DPO, we would first multiply $200,000 by the number of days in our period, which is 365. We would then divide our answer by our cost of sales, which was $750,000, and that would give us a DPO of 97.33 days. It should be noted that days payable outstanding is the opposite of days sales outstanding and is also a component of the cash-to-cash cycle time. Why is this important? It tells us that companies can optimize or reduce their cash-to-cash cycle time by increasing DPO or by reducing DSO or DIO. So, what does it mean when a company's DPO is high or low? A high DPO means the company is taking a longer time to pay its suppliers. Of course, if a company takes longer to pay its suppliers, they are better able to invest cash for a longer period of time. However, this may not be beneficial for a buyer-supplier relationship. For example, a company with a high DPO may be missing out on early payment discounts offered by their suppliers. It's important to remember that DPO can vary quite a bit between industries and practices. As such, there is no standard number that represents a good or bad DPO. Sometimes, when a company's DPO is low, it could be an indication that the company is not getting the best credit terms from suppliers or is not taking full advantage of the credit terms that may be available to them. With that being said, this could be an opportunity to extend DPO and improve the company's cash-to-cash cycle time. A low DPO, on the other hand, is not necessarily bad, as it may indicate that the company is paying suppliers early and taking advantage of early payment discounts. And that's it. Days Payable Outstanding. Well, thanks for watching this video on Days Payable Outstanding, and we look forward to having you back here for more great content right here on Lean Strategies International LLC, where you can find solutions that ignite your power. Days Sales Outstanding, or DSO as it is often called, is a ratio that measures the average number of days a company takes to collect its accounts receivable. When a company's DSO is short, it tells us that the company is faster at collecting payments from customers. This also means you are able to use the cash from sales sooner. When combined with Days Payable Outstanding and Days Inventory Outstanding, DSO is a component of the cash conversion cycle. So, how do we calculate DSO? DSO is calculated with the formula shown here. DSO equals accounts receivable multiplied by the number of days in the period divided by the total credit sales. For example, if a company has credit sales of $1.5 million over the course of a year and an accounts receivable balance of $150,000, we would calculate the DSO by first multiplying our accounts receivable of $150,000 by the number of days in our period, which in this case is 1 year or 365 days. Next, we divide this answer by the total sales due to be paid on a future date, which are known as credit sales. In our case, we divide $54,750,000 by $1,500,000. This would give us a DSO of 36.5 days. So, what exactly does 36.5 days tell us? To start, you should know that a high DSO can be dangerous. It indicates a company is selling lots of products on credit and is taking longer than normal time to collect payments for the sales from customers. This will eventually result in cash flow difficulties. On the other hand, a low DSO tells us that the company is collecting payment from its customers quite rapidly. And, as we all know, getting paid quickly is important. Be aware that DSO can vary quite a bit in different industries. With this in mind, we should consider the question, how can we improve DSO? DSO is unique in the sense that you have so much information that can be improved. With that said, mapping your receivable or collection process out and removing waste can improve both the information side of the value stream and the material side of the value stream. Another way to improve your DSO is by automating parts of the collection process. For example, electronic invoicing is much quicker than mailing and faxing. Also, many systems will now automatically guide quotes to POs and POs right into invoices. This makes the information side of the process much more efficient. Another very common way that companies can improve DSO is by giving your customers incentives to pay early. For example, a 210 net 30 means that the buyer receives a 2% discount if they pay the invoice within 10 days instead of within 30 days. And that's it. Days Sales Outstanding. Well, thank you for watching this video on Days Sales Outstanding, and we look forward to having you back for more great content right here on Lean Strategies International LLC, where you can find solutions that ignite your power.